Harvest of the Heart, a Christian romance story by Salty Vixen. The late June sun hung low over the rolling fields of Willow Creek Farm, painting the wheat in shades of gold and amber. Sarah Miller leaned against the weathered red barn, the rough planks warm against her back from a day of soaking up heat. She wore her favorite pale blue sundress, the one with tiny white daisies embroidered along the hem, its thin cotton fluttering slightly in the evening breeze. Sweat from a long afternoon of helping with the harvest still clung to her skin, but she felt alive, renewed. Across the yard, Caleb Harlan walked toward her with that steady, purposeful stride she'd come to recognize from a mile away. He carried a water jug in one hand and his worn leather Bible in the other, the same Bible he'd carried to every youth group meeting since they were teenagers. They'd grown up in the same small congregation, sat in the same Sunday school class, sung the same hymns. Yet somehow, in the last year, everything had changed. It started with a shared glance during last summer's revival service, then long talks after Bible study about dreams and fears and what God might have planned for their lives. Caleb had been away for 3 years studying agricultural science at the state university, determined to come back and help his family's struggling dairy farm. Sarah had stayed, tending her widowed mother's vegetable plots and teaching Sunday school to the little ones. When Caleb returned last fall, it was as if the Lord had quietly shifted the pieces of a puzzle they hadn't even known they were part of. Now, with harvest nearly done and the county fair just days away, the air between them felt charged with something sacred and unspoken. "You survived another day in the fields," Caleb said, offering her the jug with a half-smile that made her stomach flutter. "Barely." She took a long drink, the cool water sliding down her throat like a blessing. "I think the sun itself was trying to test my patience today." He chuckled low and warm. "You never complained, not really." "I complain to the Lord," she admitted, handing the jug back. "He's a good listener." Caleb set the jug on an overturned crate and stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the clean scent of hay and soap on him. His flannel shirt was rolled to the elbows, forearms tanned and strong from months of hard work. His dark hair was mussed from the wind in his hat, and his hazel eyes held hers with a gentleness that made her heart stutter. "Sarah," he said quietly, "I've been praying about something a lot." Her breath caught. She'd been praying too, about him, about them, about whether this growing affection was God's will or just the sweet ache of loneliness finally easing. He reached out slowly, giving her every chance to step away, and brushed a damp strand of hair from her cheek. His touch was featherlight, reverent. "I love you," he said simply. "I've loved you for longer than I knew how to name it, but more than that, I want to honor you, honor God, honor what He's building between us." Tears pricked her eyes. "I love you too, Caleb, and I want the same things." For a moment they simply stood there, hearts laid bare under the open sky, the distant lowing of cattle and the rustle of wind through the wheat the only sounds. Then, as naturally as breathing, he closed the distance. His hands framed her face, gentle, steady, and he lowered his mouth to hers. The first touch of his lips was soft, almost tentative, like the brush of a prayer. Sarah sighed against him, her hands rising to rest on his chest, feeling the strong, steady beat of his heart beneath the cotton. He tasted like sunshine and hard work and every promise she'd ever whispered to God in the quiet of her room. He deepened the kiss slowly, reverently, as if asking permission with every shift. She answered by pressing closer, her fingers curling into his shirt. The barn wall at her back offered solid support as her knees weakened, not from weakness, but from the overwhelming sweetness of being wanted so purely, so completely. Caleb's arms slid around her waist, drawing her gently against him. She felt the warmth of his body, the controlled strength in the way he held her, like she was something precious, something to be cherished rather than claimed. His kiss turned a little hungrier, a little more urgent but never crossing into recklessness. Tongues brushed in a slow, exploratory dance that sent sparks through her veins, yet every movement felt guided by restraint, by love tempered by faith. She tilted her head, inviting more, and he groaned softly, a sound of pure longing held carefully in check. One of his hands moved to the small of her back, pressing her closer until there was no space left between them. Her sundress clung lightly to her skin from the day's heat, But there was nothing immodest in the way they fit together. It was simply two hearts aligning after years of waiting. The world narrowed to the feel of his mouth on hers, the way his breath mingled with her own, the quiet sounds of contentment they both made. Somewhere in the distance, a horse nickered, and a cowbell clanged lazily, but those sounds only underscored the privacy of this moment, the way God had carved out this small pocket of joy just for them. When he finally lifted his head, both of them were breathing hard. His forehead rested against hers, eyes closed as if in thanksgiving. "Sarah," he whispered, voice rough with emotion, "I want to spend my life loving you like this, honoring you, protecting what's beautiful between us." She smiled through tears. "And waiting," she added softly, "until our wedding day when we can give ourselves fully the way God designed." He nodded, thumbs brushing away the moisture on her cheeks. "Yes, until then every kiss is a promise. Every touch is a vow we're keeping." She laughed quietly, the sound shaky with joy. "You make even restraint sound romantic." "Because it is," he said, pressing another soft kiss to her temple. "Waiting isn't punishment, it's worship." They stayed like that for long minutes, bodies close, hearts entwined, while the sun dipped lower and the first stars began to appear. The barn stood sentinel behind them, ancient and steady, much like the faith that had brought them here. Eventually, Caleb stepped back just enough to take her hand. He laced their fingers together and led her around the side of the barn to where an old wooden bench sat beneath a sprawling oak. They sat, shoulders touching, and he opened his Bible to Song of Solomon. "Set me as a seal upon thine heart," he read quietly, "as a seal upon thine arm, for love is strong as death, jealousy is cruel as the grave. The coals thereof are coals of fire, which hath a most vehement flame." Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. "I've always loved that verse. It feels holy, like love isn't just feeling, it's covenant." He kissed the top of her head. "That's what I want with you, a love that points to Christ, that lasts." They talked then about the farm, about dreams of a family, about serving the church together, about how God had used years of singleness to prepare their hearts. The conversation flowed easily, laced with laughter and quiet confessions, until the sky turned deep indigo and the crickets began their nightly chorus. When it was time to go inside, Caleb walked her to the porch. At the bottom step he paused, turning her gently to face him one more time. "One more," he murmured, eyes shining in the porch light. She smiled and rose on tiptoe. This kiss was slower, softer, full of gratitude rather than urgency. His hands cupped her face again, thumbs stroking her cheeks as if memorizing her. When they parted, both were smiling like they held the best secret in the world. "Good night, Sarah," he said. "Good night, Caleb." She watched him walk back toward the barn, his silhouette tall and sure against the starlit fields. Then she slipped inside, heart full, already counting the days until harvest ended and they could speak to their parents, until the next step in God's beautiful plan. In the quiet of her room, Sarah knelt beside her bed and thanked the Lord for a love that was worth waiting for a man who cherished her soul first, for the promise of forever built on the rock that would never shift. And somewhere across the fields, Caleb did the same.